Thank you for choosing CTN. And now, it's time with Herman and Sharron.
I love you. Thank you so much for joining us. I have my yearly treat.
Yes, you do. My treat too.
It is. I absolutely love this guy. And when I said that one time to her, she goes, "I know." But he has written 100, at least while we're sitting here, maybe there's more, 100 books. And our interviews they go way back.
Yeah.
And every time I see him on Fox and all of the major networks, whatever, it's kind of neat to look and watch the interview and go, just think, I know him. and this guy hobnobs with billionaires, but stays humble. How do you do that?
Just get by on my little measly paycheck every 2 weeks, I guess.
But you have been surrounded by Hall of Famers, names that people would say you talk to that person and they talk to you. It's amazing, and yet you were a top athlete. How many sports did you play?
Well, I played all three major sports in high school, Larry. Then I went to college, Wake Forest, on a baseball scholarship, and played there for 4 years, and then got into professional baseball right out of college. I spent 2 years as a minor league catcher in the Phillies farm system, and then I got into the front office of sports. And after 5 years running minor league ball clubs for the Phillies, I got a call from the 76ers in pro basketball, and that was almost 48 years ago. So I've been in the round ball business now for almost 5 decades, and plus the baseball, gosh, it's almost 55 years in pro sports. And that really is what laid the groundwork here for this latest book.
Extreme winning. Now, I was just talking to Pat in the green room, and I saw the news conference, and I saw it live when you went before the cameras and you wanted to break the news to people before they got some bad information. And that was?
Well, I had just been diagnosed with cancer. This was January of 2011. The form of cancer, multiple myeloma, which I had never heard of. It's a fairly rare form of cancer, but it's one of the blood cancers. And so I knew what was going on. My family, gosh, I had to talk to all of them. And then I thought, this is going to leak out, so we better go public. And I'll tell you one other thought, Herman, that came to me in that process, and that was, in order to get people praying for me and this illness, they needed to know about it. And so that was all part of the thinking, and just calling the media together and saying, here's the deal, here's what's going on.
5 years later.
5 years later.
What are they saying?
Well, the reports are all good. They don't see any signs of the multiple myeloma.
Can we give an applause?
That's right.
That's right. Okay, we got an applause.
That's great.
Isn't that wonderful?
So I responded well to all the different forms of medication. And Dr. Reynolds, the oncologist who's been treating me, has told me that he just doesn't see any signs of this illness. So,
wow.
What is your schedule like? Did you ever slow down even during all of this treatment?
I did not. Dr. Reynolds' advice was, he said, continue to live your life. Make sure you get plenty of sleep. If you don't feel good, on a particular day, don't worry about it, because you could easily feel good later. So I continued my speaking, my travel.
Which is how much?
Well, probably 10 times a month, I think, something like that. In different forms, but probably 10 times a month.
If a guy was 25 years old, they couldn't keep up with you. I'm serious.
Well, as long as I've got the energy and people want me to come and speak, I'm doing it. And as far as the books, gosh, I had them on in the pipeline, so we continue to do that, continue to write, and that has not stopped. So I think one of the keys in dealing with cancer that I have learned is don't sit on the sideline. Don't stay at home moping.
Yeah.
Continue your life as best you can.
What a living example.
That's what I learned.
He brought me, because his books are like gold to me. Because I said on my program, his books are the kind you'd like to give them away, but you go, I don't think so. So he brought me a couple of books here, and I've got in my library upstairs all kinds of his books in a special section. This is his latest, Extreme Winning. And in this book, you'll find extreme dreams, extremes participation, extreme focus, extreme passion, extreme work, extreme responsibility, extreme positive attitude, extreme goals, extreme perseverance, extreme competition, extreme desire, extreme teamwork. And let me tell you, each of the chapters are absolutely riveting. How did you, how do you possibly come up with another book? I have no idea. You talk about extreme, you're an extreme writer.
Well, Herman, here's the deal on this book. From the very beginning of my sports career, and maybe I wasn't acutely aware of what I was doing, but I was surrounded on different teams of mine and opposing teams with some remarkable athletes. As I began to study them on through the years, I discovered that they are not normal. Everything in their life is built around winning, and to an extreme level. So as the years went on, I began to make notes and began to think, what are the qualities these men and women possess? And you just read them off. I came up with 12 different qualities that every one of these people has, without exception. And there's not any of the 12 missing. I mean, they're all there.
Talk about Derek Jeter.
Well, we quote him and tell a bunch of Derek Jeter stories. He would be an extreme winner.
Yes. Now what is, because you have this in the book in detail, there's something, like you say, they're not normal. There's something in their attitude, in their thinking, that is not normal.
You know, and it's at an extreme level. Everything hinges on winning that day, and they will do anything it takes to win. Wow. And let me just pause and talk for 1 second here, Herman. There's nothing wrong with winning. We never have to apologize. Right. In fact, in my profession, if you don't produce enough W's along the way and have too many L's, if you know what I'm talking about, you're not going to be around long.
Yeah.
So it's vitally important to produce W's, but these extreme winners are absolutely relentless.
Well, you have this in detail. Derek Jeter, for example, at the Gulf Coast Yankees in Tampa, he hit .202 in his first 47 games. I mean, a guy like you that knows what all of that means, if you saw that, you maybe at that time said, I don't think he's going to make it.
Well, that was an interesting situation. He was very young, 18 years old, just out of high school, first round pick of the Yankees, big bonus baby, and they sent him down here to the rookie league, and he struggled terribly and was homesick and was on the phone every day with his parents back in Michigan.
Wow.
And really had a tough time. But deep within, he possessed all of these qualities, and it was just a matter of getting adjusted to pro baseball. And then from that point, Herman, he began to make his rise. He's a good model for all of us to study, because in the midst of all his fame, all his acclaim, all his accomplishments, he's kept a very steady, level head.
Even with all the millions that...
Yeah, he's kept himself really, he's never popped off in the media and made crazy statements and getting back page wild stories in the New York Post. I mean, he's just been a real steady force. I'm a big fan of his.
You say in the book, every extreme winner started with a dream.
You know, that's the first chapter, and I'm convinced, Herman, that first of all, I think dreams come at night.
Wow.
When we're sleeping. That's what happened to me. as a 7-year-old, I'd seen my first Major League Baseball game in Philadelphia. And that night, I had...
That was in 47.
1947, I was 7. This all-encompassing dream hit me.
You said even the smells.
Well, the smell and the color and,
Yeah.
and the sound of baseball, oh boy. I was riveted that Sunday afternoon, but I went to bed that night, woke up the next morning, and I knew exactly what I wanted to do with my life. I wanted to be a ball player. So and God, listen, the Bible, Herman, is filled with examples of dreams. I think God's big on dreams, and I think He allows them or helps perpetuate them in our minds when we're sleeping. So
Now let
you
me
alert
ask
to
you,
those dreams.
You
folks.
had that dream. Did anything ever come in the way of that dream where you said, well, maybe I want to do something else? Was it always there?
Well, Herman, it was there through youth sports in high school, off to college. You know, I was a catcher and caught at Wake Forest for 4 years, and then got my chance to go in the Phillies organization as a minor league ball player. So yeah, that dream was alive. But
Did you know that you were going to be a pro ball player, or did you ever get to the place where you go, you know what, that extreme, I don't think I'm there?
oh, Herman, very much so. And the Phillies confirmed it when they said, "You have come to the end as a ball player, son."
What did that feel like?
Well, the fact that they came to me and said, but we'd like you to stay in our organization. We think you have a future in the front office.
Because you were smart as a tack.
So that was great news. And because now I was going to move into the second part here. When one dream ended, the next dream was to be executive and try and get to the major league.
How old were you then?
23. I played 2 years, 62 and 63. But the playing days ended. And then the Phillies came to me and said, we've got a spot for you as a young executive in our farm system, which was wonderful news. I had to do my Army duty, and I did that, and then came my shot. I went to Spartanburg, South Carolina, where I spent 4 years running the Phillies farm clubs. By the way, it was in Spartanburg that I met the Lord as a 27-year-old. It was there in that South Carolina town.
Did somebody share Christ?
Oh, numbers did. Numbers of people did, including a young lady in a singing group who handed me a little booklet called The 4 Spiritual Laws.
Oh, I remember those.
You know, Bill Bright,
Yes.
Campus Crusade.
Yes.
And that little booklet really was an eye-opener to me. And I realized that all my good works, well, they weren't going to cut it. And I needed to have a personal relationship with Christ, and I was the one that had to do the inviting. And I did. At age 27, had a dramatic conversion experience, Herman. I mean, anybody who says that you can't have an instantaneous conversion, it's not true.
That's exactly right.
I did.
That's exactly right.
And that was almost 50 years ago, Herman. It was a life changer for me.
Think of how many of those in a Billy Graham crusade had that.
Yeah.
Yeah. You talk about preparation, another key thing.
Yes.
Coach Wooden shared with you one secret of success above all others. And I wrote it down in case, because your memory is phenomenal, but I don't want to put you on the spot. He said, a lot of little things done well.
Yeah.
That's the key.
I was so fortunate that Coach Wooden let me into his life, late in his life. I ended up writing 3 books about him.
Yeah,
And
they're phenomenal.
Oh, he was, and, you know, had that great career, but a very humble, sweet man. So on numbers of occasions, we'd pick him up about 5 o'clock and take him to dinner at his favorite restaurant. So one night, I'm sitting right next to him, and I said, Coach, you've been on this earth a long time. Could you point out, or is there one secret of success that you have come across? And he paused for a minute, in his understated way, he said, the closest I could come to one secret of success, he said, would be a lot of little things done well. Wow. And he was big, boy, he was big on preparation for his practices. and on game nights, and every detail of what he did. Well, it was a lot of little things done well.
And your book pointed out
Good advice for all of us.
all of that. I mean, it was a phenomenal book. You also talk about focus. Focus. In fact, it's amazing, that term. This year, 2016, every time I would pray, that would come to my mind. And I finally got to the place where I said, Lord, are you telling me that I need to focus more on my relationship with you? But when I read that, I go, isn't that amazing? That's an interesting term. But you talk about B.J. Armstrong, Team Magic, on your book about Michael Jordan.
Yes, yes.
B.J. Played with Jordan.
Yes.
And you ask him a question.
Yeah, I was writing a book at that time called How to Be Like Mike.
Yes.
And I was researching it thoroughly, determined to talk to everybody that had ever known Michael. BJ had joined our team in Orlando at that point, and one day I just said to him, BJ, I'm writing a book about your old teammate Michael. Here's my list of his qualities.
Yeah.
And BJ looked at it and said, it looks good. However, you do not have down there the most important quality that made Michael Michael. And I said, I'm all ears, BJ. And he said it was his focus. He said if the Bulls were playing tonight in Miami and it was the third quarter, Michael was in the third quarter during the third quarter.
Wow.
He wasn't in the fourth quarter during the third quarter, and he wasn't back in last night's game in Chicago tonight during the third quarter in Miami. He was absolutely focused on what was going on now.
Now, can you train that?
I think you can, Herman. I really do. I think you can stress it. I think people need to really practice it and work at it. It's almost as if you put blinders on, like a horse race
Yes,
at the
yes.
Kentucky Derby.
Yes.
Those horses, without those blinders, Herman, they're all over the track.
Yeah.
They're wandering everywhere. And so I think extreme winners understand this extreme focus bit. And here is one quick little example. At dinner one night, we've got Bill Gates Sr., a lawyer. Over here is Bill Gates. Over here is Warren Buffett. And over here is another guest who says to this group, what's the most important quality you think for success? Bill Gates Sr., the lawyer, says, focus. Bill Gates, the billionaire, says, focus. And Warren Buffett over here says, focus. I mean, all three of these giants
Amazing.
said the same thing. So it's the ability to block out distractions, stay off the rabbit trails, stay on the main highway, and do what you have to do with intense focus. That's what the extreme winners have done, Herman.
You talk about passion, and the interesting story about Bobby Bowden, which he was phenomenal.
Delightful man.
And he said that when he would go to bed, he would hope that the sleep would end soon so that he could get back to what he was doing. Now, you talk about passion. That's an example that most of us do not have. Where did he get that?
Well, I think passion comes from loving what you do, Herman. And if you love what you do, you're going to be passionate about it.
It's like, I can't wait till this sleep ends so I can go back.
Yeah. Passion, well, let's put it this way. Passionate people are enthusiastic. Yeah. They have great energy, great zeal. And it comes from loving what you do. And if you love what you do, well, you're going to be extremely passionate about it. And what a quality to watch. You get around passionate people.
Yeah.
And that explodes across everybody. And everybody starts running around with their hair on fire because the leader is passionate and he's going to ignite everybody else's hair.
You had this obviously in your book on Michael Jordan, but with the Chicago Bulls. And he found the winning formula, and that is working every day. Even you point out that with all of his fame and all of his abilities and all of his accolades, he never, ever broke his workday?
He had a pattern. He was going to work every day to improve, spend his summers with that same mindset. In other words, when the one season had ended, Michael would work through the summer, and then when the next training camp started, Michael would come back with a couple of brand new weapons, and he did this his whole career. So every year he was getting better. Wow. He knew that there were new young players coming in the league, and he better not sit and just rest on what he had accomplished. And that's a good lesson for all of us, Herman. I don't care where you are in life. You can't just sit there. You've got to keep putting shoe leather to the pavement.
That's your pattern, isn't it?
And you got to
your personal commitment is that, isn't it?
Yeah, to constantly be working at what is important. And in other words, in my case, I would hope that every speech I give is better than the last one.
Wow.
Because I've learned something and I've worked at it. People ask me all the time, what's your favorite book that you've written? And I always say, the most recent.
Yeah.
Because I would hope that it's better than the one that I did right before it.
Wow.
That I've improved, and that comes from working. And it's an everyday thing, Herman. You know, we need consistency in our work ethic.
Amen. This book has every area that you need to train yourself to accomplish for your personal life. It isn't just for extreme athletes. It's for people that want to know how to take on that day. And we can all improve every single day. Next month I'll be 77. And I cannot believe that I'm still driving myself, pushing myself, and I don't feel that age.
Good for you.
At all.
And Herman, here's a little tidbit. The older we get, the longer range our goals need to be. Because when we stop setting long-range goals, well, the dying process begins.
Yeah. Well, that's good for you.
It is.
Yeah, that's very good for you.
So picture this scene.
That is great.
John Wooden, the great coach, is 99, and he's in the hospital. I remember talking to his daughter, Nan, who said, Dad is not coming out this time. However, there was one last book in the process of getting finished. It was a coffee table book of Coach Wooden's life. The day before he died, he was in his bed approving some final photos for the book. Wow. You know, just to get it polished and perfected, and he was there overseeing that. The next day he passed away. The book came out, about, 6 weeks later. And Coach Wooden was there on his last day alive, just approving some final pictures.
What a great story.
So there you go. There's a man, 99, living right to the last breath.
I needed that, as she well knows.
So
yeah, he's always saying, I only think in 5-year increments now at the most, you know.
Well, listen, Herman, he died at 99, and he was still involved. That's 22 years from now. So you're a young goat.
I know it, yeah, that's right. And age is only a number anyway.
Yeah.
You talk about responsibility. Mike Krasinski, West Point, dirty shoes, but Mike took responsibility. Now, that story, do you remember that story in the book?
Very well, Herman. Here's Mike Krzyzewski. The Duke coach now and the winningest coach in the history of men's basketball in college. So he's a freshman. He's a plebe at West Point. And in January, West Point is really nasty weather-wise. So he is going across the campus with his roommate to the next class. His uniform is pressed. His shoes are just perfect. And at that point, an upperclassman steps in a puddle of gook. And we don't know whether it was on purpose or accidentally. And nevertheless, it splattered all over his shoes. And Mike, at that point, had a decision to make. Quickly go back to his room and get his shoes fixed up, or try and get to the next class without being caught. Anyway, at that precise moment, a officer came along and saw the shoes and challenged Mike. And Mike said, well, officer, I was just walking across the campus at And the officer interrupted him and said, "Son, here on this campus, when you're challenged, you have one of three answers. Yes, sir. No, sir. No excuse, sir." Now, they have since added a fourth for this generation. "I do not understand, sir." But back in the day, it was yes, sir, no, sir, and no excuse, sir. So Mike, to this day, Herman, he will tell you that was a turning point in his life. And he said from that point on, he said, his attitude has been, this was done well and I did it. This was done poorly and I did it. But in either case, I am responsible. Good lesson for all of us.
Amen.
Because we are responsible.
That's right.
And we can't duck it. And we can't have a case of instant amnesia,
Yeah.
you know,
That's
about
exactly
issues.
right.
Yeah, we're responsible. And extreme winners take extreme responsibility.
We've got about 3 minutes left, but I
Okay.
want you to tell this story on goals. June 1985, Pat Williams had a goal: bring NBA franchise to Orlando. 2 minutes. Give that goal story.
Yeah, that was the goal. I had spent 12 years in Philadelphia running the 76ers. It was now June of '86. I resigned my position in Philadelphia, moved to Orlando, hooked up with some business leaders and community leaders. And our goal was to try and convince the NBA to put an expansion basketball team in Orlando. Well, the only problem was Orlando had never had Major League Sports. There was no arena to play in. It was not a big, booming town like it is now. And it was just, the odds were not good. Nevertheless, I spent the better part of a year running all over the city, selling season tickets to a team that didn't exist.
Goals.
Where the league had not agreed to add more teams. And lo and behold, after 10 months of intense lobbying and pushing our community, the NBA agreed to add 4 teams, 4 new teams, 4 expansion teams. And Orlando was one of them. And so we started our first, we got a building built and we got players and we designed uniforms and we had a mascot and we had a dance team. And I mean, suddenly we were in business and we played our first game in October of 1989. So we're now, if my math is right, I guess we're in our 27th season. We're in our second arena, got a beautiful new arena.
Oh, my goodness.
And Orlando's become quite a boom town,
Yeah, it
as you
has.
know. And
Yeah.
the story is it's important to have a dream. You need goals.
Yeah.
And then you got to go pursue them.
Jesus Christ is the answer to every need you may have. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching It's Time. If you have recently made a decision for Christ, Herman and Sharron would like to hear from you.